Opening week in Connecticut, next on Face the State. 3 days until the quarantine is lifted for thousands of businesses. Are we ready? We'll get answers from Hartford Healthcare President and CEO Jeff Flax and the President of the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, Joe Brennan. Some think the opening day is too late. The Mayor of Cromwell, Enzo Faenza, presents the argument to open earlier. Plus, the quarantine impedes the justice system for some families. Attorney Rich Rockland on how some children could fall through the cracks during the pandemic. It's all straight ahead this Sunday, May 17th, 2020.
From Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program, this is Face the State.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Dennis House. 3 days, the state will reopen partially, but the big coronavirus headline in the last couple of days has been this inflammatory illness targeting children. What exactly does it mean? With us now, the president and CEO of Hartford Healthcare, Jeff Flax. And Jeff, once again, great to see you on a Sunday morning here on Face the State.
Thank you. Good morning, Dennis.
I just want to get your insight on this. What do you know about this inflammatory illness that so many parents are concerned about? What should we be telling them today?
So first of all, we have so many great capabilities in the state of Connecticut with the Children's Hospital in Hartford and the Children's Hospital at Yale, the many pediatric offices and urgent care centers. So there's wonderful access to care. But I think when we look today, this is emerging. It's still something that is not prevalent, in any significant way. So I think we're going to see and learn more news as the days go forward. But I would always advise people when they have any concern to reach out to their primary care physician. The emergency departments are open in all areas of access to care today in Connecticut. Really stand ready to help and support people.
I realize that every case is different. I believe at Hartford Healthcare, you've had over 1,000 people who've had COVID-19 who have been released. What has their journey been like? Is there a typical journey?
I wouldn't say there's a typical journey, but it's incredibly inspiring, Dennis. I mean, we've seen so many celebrations. So many people who have really fought so hard to return and restore their health. It's just been amazing to see more than 1,000 people today be admitted to our hospitals, cared for, many in intensive care, and now returned home. Is just one of the great examples of the capabilities that exist within our hospitals across America. And at the same time, we do appreciate and recognize that there is mortality with this disease, and our hearts break for the people who have lost loved ones. But thankfully, so many more success stories of people who are leaving our facilities really being well.
I want to ask you about testing, and a lot of people are wondering at home if they should get tested. There still aren't enough tests for everyone to go out there and get it done, correct?
Well, first, I'm really proud. We have 10 testing centers set up across Connecticut, so we've built a statewide network. There are many other test centers that have been stood up recently. We also, within Hartford Healthcare, operate a mobile testing unit. So testing is far more prevalent. You do not need a physician note. People can walk up to testing centers. They can go to drive-through testing centers and get testing. So it's going to be an important part of how we restart Connecticut. But I'm also really pleased, Dennis. We're providing testing now for homeless shelters, nursing homes, community centers. We're using testing in different ways to really understand prevalence within all the communities we serve. And it's an important part of how we're going to restore confidence in our communities and restore, ultimately, the capacity for people to circulate, safely.
The state is reopening on Wednesday, May 20th. Hartford Hospital, of course, never closed, but there were some elective surgeries that were put on hold. Will those resume?
Absolutely. So we've already begun resuming a whole series of services, and importantly, we're doing this safely. We've put many provisions in place, and there's so many innovations. One example, Dennis, if you go to our physician offices today, people are sitting in their cars, they're being texted and advised when to enter the office so they can be immediately brought back into care rooms. We've put different mechanisms to really shield our staff and our patients from each other using plexiglass. We've put all types of capabilities so that we can do this as safely as possible. But importantly, before anyone enters one of our facilities, they're being temperature screened, they're answering a series of questions, and prior to anyone having any surgical procedure, they're being tested for COVID-19. And we've put rampant testing in place also for all of our staff. So we're putting every provision in place to do this as safely as possible. And it's so necessary. This is about access to care, and we want to make sure people in our communities are getting the preventive care, the urgent and emergent care they need, and the care they need for their chronic diseases.
Jeff Flax from Hartford Healthcare, thanks so much for joining us once again, and enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you, Dennis.
The reopening of our state on Wednesday is welcomed by many, but what impact will it have on the economy? With us now, the president of the CBIA, the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, is Joe Brennan, a former guest on this program, usually in person, but joining us remotely as are all our guests in this pandemic. Joe, thanks for being with us here today.
Hey, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for having me on.
I want to ask you, because are we expecting a big jolt to the economy, or will it sort of be like a slow infiltration of cash to restaurants and businesses and things like that?
Yeah, I really think it's the latter, Dennis. First of all, Governor Lamont was fairly liberal in his list of essential businesses. All manufacturers in Connecticut have been able to be open during this whole time. A lot of construction's been going on, unlike some other states where those things were shut down. So we have had things moving along at a decent clip, certainly not a great clip. So after Wednesday and more businesses open up, I think it'll be a slow and gradual improvement, hopefully, in our economy. As you know, some businesses that will be eligible to open on May 20th are likely choose not to and pick some later date. So I think we'll definitely see a slow, gradual improvement in our economy.
Do you know of any companies or businesses that just won't ever reopen again because of this?
I can't identify any right now that won't reopen ever again. I know that's certainly the risk the longer this shutdown goes on, particularly for those in the later phases, not in this first phase, but in the later phases. As it's stating the obvious, but not having ever gone through anything like this before, it's really hard to project on what the ultimate outcomes are going to be.
I want to talk a little bit about the restaurant industry because it employs thousands of people across our state. And many are saying that they're not going to make any money with this outdoor dining policy. They'll just barely break even. At what point do you expect the restaurant industry to be going full blast again, or do you think that will never happen?
Well, I certainly hope it will happen, and I think it will happen. Again, it's hard to predict what time. I know the restaurants are working actively to try to move forward as quickly as possible, opening up indoor dining as well as outdoor dining, and do it safely, as every business will be looking to do. Will there be some that won't make it? Yeah, I just think the reality is there probably are some, but we hope that number is a very small number. And it's going to be a while. There's no question. There's going to be, it's not just the restaurant's ability to serve, it's the confidence of the consumer base to go out into not just restaurants, but any place where there's larger gatherings. Obviously, you're not wearing a mask while you're eating. So there's challenges there, but the restaurant people I talk to a lot, they're really innovative. They're coming up with all different ideas on how to survive this. So hopefully the vast majority of them will.
I was reading a report about the impact on Manhattan, and I wanted to ask you about this in terms of our local cities here. Many companies are learning that their employees, many of them, can actually work from home. They may never have to come back into an office again, and that could impact the office and the commercial real estate market. What do you think about that? Could that happen here?
Yeah, sure. We've been talking about that almost since this pandemic started, or at least the shutdown started. I've been working from home for 2 solid months now. I never thought I'd be good at working from home, but it's been productive. And more and more companies are finding that. What that means ultimately, I don't know, but I do know some of the larger companies will probably continue to have a lot of people work remotely and will be reducing their footprints. But, obviously, whenever, there's a downturn in one area, if commercial real estate gets hit, hopefully there'll be other industries that will want to move into those spaces. But I think that's very true. And we're also talking about companies that may want to get out of Boston or out of New York, as well as individuals. So, I think we've got opportunities there.
Joe, one final question, your thought and discussion on this, and that is the economy was sort of on the upswing when this pandemic first broke out, and I'm wondering what you think will happen to the Connecticut economy, because it was that recovery was fragile, as many people said. Do you expect that we could be in for some rough times?
Well, Dennis, we certainly did see a lot of positives of late, knowing that over the last number of years, we've really struggled to be on a par with other states in the country and the national economy. And we did start to see some improvement. So the timing of this obviously wasn't great, but given the fact we had a sizable rainy day fund will help us get through the short term. And as long as we can effectively go through this reopening, and it's really up to every individual in Connecticut to make sure they follow guidelines to make sure that happens. But if it does, I'm hopeful that the Connecticut economy can see a bounce back. And we may be ahead of some other states that are around us that are a little bit behind us when it comes to reopening. So I think this can be an opportunity for us to move forward safely but quickly and then get back on track as soon as we can.
Joe Brennan from CBIA, we thank you so much for joining us today and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe.
Thanks, Dennis.
In a moment, a local mayor on what the quarantine has done to his town. And we welcome you to watch past editions of Face the State right now on the WFSB app, all new, or our YouTube channel.